back to the Worth Living Podcast. My name is Kiana W. Mitchell, and I am your host. And today we're going to be talking about something that hits close to home for many people, and that is why you keep choosing the wrong people or partner. And not just the surface level why, but like the real science-backed, psychological rooted explanation behind your dating patterns. Because once you understand the science, you can stop blaming yourself and start seeing your choices through a lens of compassion and clarity. This episode is going to feel like a mix of therapy, neuroscience, and that honest best friend talk you didn't know you needed. Now, we are breaking down the familiar pull toward why you keep choosing the wrong partners. We're going to talk about the chemistry behind the chaos, the attachment patterns that shape your love life, and the unconscious belief that keeps you stuck. And I promise you, by the end of this episode, you'll feel more empowered, more aware, and more capable of choosing differently. So I want you to listen to this episode with curiosity, not judgment. You're not broken. You're not bad at love. You are not destined to end up with the wrong people and in wrong relationships for the rest of your life. You're simply repeating patterns that your brain learned a long time ago. And today, we are going to shine a light on those patterns so you can fully break them and finally begin to experience the love that you deserve. So let's settle in. If you have any tea or anything you want to drink right now, that will be a perfect time. Get your journal or whatever makes you feel grounded. This is going to be a powerful episode, and remember, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness, because awareness is what gives you the power to choose differently. But before we do that, let us take a look at last week's episode of the podcast. So last week on the podcast, we talked about situationships versus real relationships and how to stop settling for less. So that episode resonated with a lot of people, and what we talked about was the difference between a situationship, that murky, undefined, emotional, inconsistent, almost relationship, and what a real, committed partnership looks like. We talked about how situationships often feel easier because they require less vulnerability, less clarity, and less emotional risk. But we also talked about the cost, the emotional exhaustion, the confusion, the self-doubt, and the way settling for less slowly chips away at your self-worth. We also explored why people do stay in situationships, even when they know they deserve more and they actually want a real relationship. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, and sometimes the belief that this is the best, this is all I can get. We also talked about how your nervous system can get addicted to the unpredictability of a situationship, making inconsistency seem exciting, and how that our body can mistake that for chemistry. We also talked about how situationships can feel familiar to people who have a history of choosing emotionally unavailable partners. So that fit into a pattern, and a pattern that didn't start in adulthood, but usually traces back to childhood experiences, attachment wounds, and the learned beliefs about love. So if last week was about recognizing when we're settling, this week is about understanding why we keep choosing people who make settling feel familiar. Because once you understand the science behind your patterns, you are able to finally break them. And that's what we want to do today. We want to understand why we're doing the same thing, why each person that we're dating could be the same person in a different body. And we want to know this so that we can finally break this pattern. Okay, so now that we're caught up, let's get into the psychology of attraction and why your brain keeps pulling you toward people who are not the best people for you. Before we get into today's topic, here is an ad from one of our sponsors. Are you repeating the same relationship cycles, attracting emotionally unavailable partners, ignoring red flags you swore you'd never ignore again? It's not you, it's your patterns. Your patterns are not your destiny. They're simply the result of old beliefs, old wounds, and old experiences. And the great thing about this is that you can rewrite them. My free guide shows you how to break the cycles that kept you stuck in unhealthy relationships. Start your healing today by clicking the link below in the show notes to download my free guide, Break Your Relationship Patterns. So let's talk about the science behind attraction, because attraction isn't random. It's patterned, it's learned, and it's deeply influenced by your nervous system, your childhood experiences, and the way your brain interprets things that are familiar. One of the biggest psychological principles at play here is that there is a principle of familiarity. Your brain is wired to prefer what feels familiar, even if what feels familiar isn't healthy. So, if you grew up around emotional distance, inconsistency, or chaos, your brain may interpret this dynamic as normal, not comfortable, but familiar. And things that are familiar often feels like chemistry. This is why someone who is emotionally uninvolved or emotionally unavailable can feel magnetic, while someone who is stable and consistent can just feel boring. It's not the stable person it's not that the stable person is boring, so that's not it. It's that your nervous system doesn't recognize safety yet. Then we have the whole thing with attachment theory, which explains how your early relationships shape your adult romantic patterns. So, if you develop an anxious attachment style, you might feel drawn to avoidant partners because the push pull dynamic mirrors your childhood experiences of wanting closeness but not receiving it consistently. If you're avoidant, you might choose partners who chase you because it reinforces your belief that intimacy is overwhelming. And if you're disorganized, you might find yourself in relationships that feel chaotic because chaos feels familiar. None of this is about blame, it's about understanding. Your brain is trying to recreate what it knows, not because it's good for you, but because it is familiar. So here's a simple example. Imagine you grew up with a parent who is loving one moment and distant the next. As an adult, you might feel an intense pull toward partners who give you affection inconsistently. Your brain isn't choosing them because they're right for you. It's choosing them because they feel familiar. So, understanding this is the first step toward choosing differently. Now, let's dig deeper into the psychology behind why you keep repeating same relationship patterns, even when you consciously want something totally different than what you've been experiencing in the past. So, one of the biggest concepts here is repetition compulsion. So, in simple terms, this is your mind's unconscious attempt to fix an old wound by recreating it in new relationships. So, if you didn't receive consistent love growing up, you might choose partners who are inconsistent, hoping that this time you'll finally earn the love you didn't get. It's not logical, it's emotional, and this is powerful. Then we have cognitive biases, which shape how you interpret your relationships. Confirmation bias is you look for evidence that supports your existing beliefs. So if you believe you're too hard to love, you might overlook affection and focus on rejection. There might be the halo effect. You let one's attractive trait overshadow red flags. And a lot of us do this, right? That's why you see red flags and we continue on with the relationship. And we don't see it until later that, ooh, that probably wasn't a good partner. Now, maybe they're charming, and a lot of time they are charming, they're successful, or they're just emotionally intense, love bombing, things like that. So you ignore everything else because you're focusing on that one trait that's attractive to you and it overshadows the red flags. Then we have the scarcity mindset. So you might believe good partners are rare. So if you think that good partners are rare, you might cling to whoever shows interest, even if they're not aligned with your needs. So these biases doesn't mean that you're broken. They mean that your brain is simply trying to protect you. But your brain is using outdated information. Another psychological factor is your self concept, okay? So you date at the level of your self worth, not your potential. So if you believe you're too much, you may choose partners who treat you like you're too much. If you believe you're not enough, you may choose partners who make you feel like you're not enough. So here's a real life example. Imagine you meet someone who is kind, consistent, and emotionally available. They text back, they show up, they communicate. And instead of feeling excited, you feel uncomfortable, maybe even suspicious. That discomfort isn't a sign that they're wrong for you, it's a sign that your nervous system is unfamiliar with healthy love. So, understanding these psychological patterns can help you see your choices with compassion and give you the power you need to rewrite them. So when we talk about the spark, the intense electric feeling you get when you meet someone and instantly feel drawn to them, we romanticize the spark. But the truth is, the spark is often a trauma response, not a sign of compatibility. One of the biggest factors here is trauma bonding. Trauma bonding happens when someone gives you affection inconsistently. Hot one minute, cold the next. This creates a cycle of intermittent reinforcement, which is the same pattern seen in gambling addicts. Your brain releases dopamine unpredictably, making the relationship feel addictive. You're not addicted to that person, you're addicted to the emotional roller coaster. Then there's the neurochemistry of attraction. When you meet someone who triggers your old wounds or familiar patterns, your brain lights up with adrenaline, dopamine, and cortisol. It feels intense, it feels exciting, it feels like chemistry. But intensity is not intimacy, chaos is not connection. On the flip side, when you meet someone who is stable, kind, and emotionally available, your nervous system may not release those same chemicals. Instead, you may feel calm, safe, grounded. And if your body is used to stress, calm can feel like boredom. Here's an example. Imagine you're used to your partners who make you feel anxious, right? So if you're used to partners who make you feel anxious, who take hours to text back, who send mixed signals all the time, who keeps you guessing, when you finally meet someone who communicates clearly, your brain doesn't know what to do with that information. You might think, I'm just not feeling it. They're boring. This just isn't my kind of person. But what you're actually feeling is the absence of anxiety, and your brain mistakes that for a lack of chemistry. The spark is not a sign of compatibility, it is often a sign of things that are familiar, right? And we know that things that are familiar, shaped by your past, and it can make us see things differently. This is not something that's going to shape your future. So when you understand the science behind attraction, you can stop chasing intensity and start choosing stability. Now, your dating patterns are deeply connected to your self concept, the belief you hold about yourself, your worth, and what you deserve. These beliefs are often formed in childhood and reinforced through your early relationships. So many people carry core beliefs like, I'm too much, I'm not enough, love has to be earned, people always leave, I have to prove my value. These beliefs operate in the background, influencing who you choose, what you tolerate, and how you interpret love. So if you believe you're too much, you may choose partners who make you feel like you need to shrink yourself. If you believe you're not enough, you may choose partners who treat you like you're not enough. And if you believe love has to be earned, you may choose partners who make you work for their affection. So the way we think about ourselves becomes the filter through which we choose relationships. Now here's a real life example, okay? So let's imagine you grew up hearing that you were difficult, sensitive, or dramatic. As an adult, you might choose partners who reinforce that narrative, partners who dismiss your feelings, minimize your needs, or make you feel like you're asking for too much. Not because you consciously want that, because I know nobody wants that, right? But it's because it aligns with your internal belief system about yourself. On the other hand, if you meet someone who validates your emotions, listens to you, and treats you with respect, that may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. You might think, they're too nice, or, oh, that feels weird. But what feels weird is being treated in a way that contradicts your old beliefs and what you think about your self worth. So, in order to change your dating patterns, it requires changing your self concept, what you think about yourself. And that starts with awareness. When you begin to see yourself as worthy, lovable, and deserving of healthy love, your choices dramatically, naturally will begin to shift. Now that we've explored the science and psychology behind your patterns, let's talk about how to break the cycle. Because awareness is powerful, but action is transformative. So the first thing I would suggest is recognize your patterns, right? Pattern recognition. Take time to journal your relationship patterns or your past relationships. I would start with journaling past relationships, looking for recurring themes or patterns. Ask yourself, what traits did I ignore early on? What emotional needs went unmet? What red flags did I rationalize? And what dynamics felt familiar? Seeing your patterns on paper can help you understand them without judgment. The second thing I would do is nervous system recalibration or regulation. So if your body is used to chaos, calm is going to feel uncomfortable at first. You can retrain your nervous system though through mindful practices, breath work, somatic grounding, slowing down early dating signs, slowing down during early dating stages, and This is going to help your body learn that safety is not boring, it's actually healthy. Third, rewriting core beliefs. So just use some cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to challenge old beliefs. So when you're using these cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to challenge your old beliefs, you can be able to catch yourself when you're thinking things like, I'm too much. You can replace it with, my emotions are valid. When you think love has to be earned, you can replace it with, healthy love is freely given. But here's another thing I would love for you to think about and look into, okay? Now, earlier this year or last year, we talked about how we can use therapy as maintenance. And sometimes, especially if you're dating and you're trying to like rewrite core beliefs and improve your self value and your self worth and your self concept, it's very important that you seek the help of a therapist, a coach, or a counselor. And I say that because a lot of times you can do things on your own, especially if you're aware and you have self awareness, right? But even with that, sometimes it takes that person on the outside looking in who's been trained with to help you change your belief system and your thoughts and your mindset to help you reach where you want to go. So I would definitely encourage you, especially if you can, to get the help of a coach, a therapist, or a counselor so that you can have the help you need as you navigate rewriting your core beliefs. Fourth, I would say choose differently on purpose. Healthy relationships may feel unfamiliar at first, and that is totally okay. You do not need to feel instant fireworks. You need to feel respected, valued, and safe. Look for green flags, and green flags are things like consistency, clear communication, emotional availability, accountability, and kindness. So choosing differently is going to require you tolerating the discomfort of unfamiliar safety, okay? But that discomfort is temporary and it is a sign that you are growing. So here's a simple example. If you're used to partners who text back hours later, someone who responds quickly might feel too eager. But that's not eagerness, that's emotional availability. And emotional availability is what you've been craving for all along. And it's also what you actually want in a relationship. Being able to recognize patterns can help you break the cycle. Breaking the cycle isn't about finding the perfect partner because we know we are all flawed in some way, form, or fashion, but it's about becoming the version of yourself who chooses healthy love. Before we move into our listener reflection questions, I want to introduce this week's featured song, Scream by Emory Rose. So if you're new here, Emory Rose is the official Worth Loving podcast artist, and she's also my alter ego. Yes, I am Emory Rose. She's a part of me that writes from the heart, sings from the soul, and expresses the emotions that don't always fit neatly into words. Scream is a song about breaking cycles and finally letting out the emotions you've been holding in, the ones you swallowed to keep the peace, the ones you buried to survive. It's raw, it's honest, and it's a reminder that your voice truly matters, your feelings matter, your stories matter. And I'm also excited to share that every song you hear on the podcast during the month of August will be available on all streaming platforms beginning this Friday. So if you've been vibing with the music, if you have felt seen by the lyrics, or if you just want to support the creative side of this community, you can follow Emory Rose on Spotify or wherever you stream your music. I've included the artist link in the show notes, so feel free to tap it and join the journey. Music has a way of reaching places that words alone can't, and Scream is one of those songs that holds space for the parts of you that are healing, transforming, and reclaiming your voice. Here is the song, Scream by Emory Rose.
I found you in another life today. We've been through this before. You said if I let you come home again, you wouldn't cheat on me. Now you're back to your old tricks. I don't think I can handle it. I've done everything that I could do to try to prove my love for you. Stop telling me what I wanna hear. It's obvious that you don't care. can't look at you. The betrayal I feel is visceral, and now I wanna check your phone. I need to find out all of the details that you left out. Stop telling me what I wanna hear. It's obvious that you don't care. Stop telling me what I wanna hear. It's obvious that you don't care. I get mad when I look at you. I wanna scream. I wanna scream. I get mad when I look at you. I wanna scream. I wanna scream. This is the last straw for me. I don't wanna be in this relationship with you. I feel angry, hurt, and betrayed. There is no way that I am gonna stay. I get mad when I look at you. When I look at, I wanna scream. I wanna scream. I get mad when I look at you. When I look at, I wanna scream. I wanna scream. I get mad when I look at you. When I look at, I wanna scream. I wanna scream. I wanna scream. I wanna scream.
As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with some reflective questions, okay? These aren't meant to judge you, they're meant to help you see yourself more clearly and understand your patterns with compassion. So take a moment to breathe, get still, and let these questions land gently. Question number 1: what patterns do I keep repeating in my relationships? Question number 2: what feels familiar in the people I choose, and why? Question number 3: what emotions do I associate with love? Anxiety or excitement? Safety or uncertainty? Question number 4: what does healthy love feel like or look like to me? Question number 5: what am I afraid will happen if I choose someone who treats me well? Question number 6: what core beliefs about myself show up the most in my dating life? Question number 7: what would choosing differently look like for me? Now, these questions aren't about finding the right answer. They're about understanding your truth. Because when you understand your truth, you can rewrite your story. And remember, you are worthy of a relationship that feels safe, stable, loving, and aligned. You are worthy of someone who chooses you with clarity. You are worthy of someone who sees you, values you, and meets you where you are. Your patterns make sense, but they don't have to define your future. Thank you so much, guys, for spending time with me today. This episode was a deep one, and it was a lot of information to take in. So I hope that it was able to give you some clarity, compassion, and a new understanding of why you've been choosing the wrong people or partners in your life. And I want you to know it's not because you're flawed, but it's because your brain has been following old patterns. And now you have the awareness and the tools to choose differently. If this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with someone who needs it, post it on your stories, or send it to a friend. Start a conversation. We know that healing does not happen all the time in isolation, but healing happens in community. And don't forget, Scream by Emory Rose, along with all of the August podcast songs, will be available on streaming platforms this Friday. And I put the link in the show notes so that you can just click it and follow the artist Emory Rose, and you will get all of the songs when they post this Friday. Guys, I am so proud of you and I am rooting for you. And I'm honored to walk with you on this journey. So thank you for inviting me along by listening to the podcast. Until next time, choose love, choose healing, and choose yourself. Have an amazing day and an awesome weekend. Bye bye.